So, Adam, from what I understand, you've been playing Ironjawz for a really long time. Is that true?
I've been known to dabble.
You've been known to dabble. I think I can't remember. I was just asking around in Discords, like trying to find you or whatever, right? And I think someone said that you've been playing Ironjawz like basically since the game started.
So I started with Nurgle, funny enough, and then moved over to Orcs. Yeah, and then from there it was. I'm unfortunately what no one likes, a borrow hammer kind of person. So
Sure.
I own Gloomspite Gets and kind of Flesh Eater Courts, but Orcs. I think I of my list, I literally only owned Kragnos. Everything else I borrowed.
Oh, like for this game, for this tournament that you played.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this was the Ironweld Age of Sigmar Grand Tournament just this past weekend, July 12th.
That's right.
56 players. Like that was pretty big one. And I think I'm just looking at the results here. You placed, I guess, technically second with a
That's right.
5-0. Yeah, just I guess behind a little bit on points.
They did actually strength a schedule for the first tiebreaker,
Oh,
which
okay.
is always an interesting one. I mean, it's always the debate of which tiebreaker is best, right? Points is solid, but kind of favors destruction armies. Strength of schedules, good in the sense that the person who beats the people who do the best should be rewarded for it, but bad because you don't have control over that. I know a lot of tournaments will do differential, which is, I think, probably the best, but also as a feels bad because it's never great when you have kind of a stranglehold over the game and you are rewarded for continuing to just mollywop the person you're playing against. You know, you kind of want to have fun with it.
For sure.
And so I think there's kind of that debate of what to do as the first tiebreaker, and I don't know that there's a right answer, unfortunately.
Going 5-0 is going 5-0, right? Like, so
Yeah.
I'm just gonna run through your list here really quick. So it's obviously Ironjawz. We're taking Iron Fist, and that's gonna be my first question when I'm done here. Restless Energy and Intercept and Recover. General's Regiment is Gordrak with 2 Weird Brute Rekkas, unreinforced, and this is the original Weird Brute Rekkas, not the Scourge of Gairan Weird Brute Rekkas. Next, we have a Mega Boss on Maw-Krusha with Fasten, with the Amberbone Whetstone, and Hulking Brute, with a reinforced Weird Brute Rekkas regiment or unit coming in after that. The 3rd regiment we have is Kragnos and some Scourge of Gairan Gorgruntas. And the 4th regiment is a War Chanter. And of course, we're taking the Boss Rock Tower. And you have no casting, so there is no manifestation lore to speak of. So why Iron Fist?
So I'll give you a little background on my limited preparation for the tournament. So I actually only got to do about 2 games prior to this new GHB, or during this new GHB prior to the tournament. And a lot of what I was going off of was just what I heard was good, or heard should be played. And so I kind of was under the impression Night Haunt, Daughters of Cain, Cities of Sigmar, very, very strong contenders.
Yes.
I know really great players locally who are playing things like Skaven. And so I previously have just been playing Cruel Boys, and they have no durability, really. I mean, their biggest advantage is kind of combat manipulation with fight lasts, but with things like Daughters of Cain, Night Haunt, stuff like that, we're not really in a meta, as so it appears, that is running it a lot of just like single hammer units. It seems like it's a bunch of 80 witches or bajillion Harridans, things like that. And Kupla is immediately out of the question. The other thing that I was informed is there's a lot of minus to hits.
Yeah, there's quite a few running around.
Yeah, so with that, I figured just getting as much +1 to hit as humanly possible was probably the best bet. And that was my sad decision. I also don't like any of the what are they called? Battle formations, really, for Ironjawz. I think they're all a little lackluster. Also, the name, the passive's called Smashing and Bashing, so it reminds me of a better time.
Let's see. Oh, did I close your list? I hope I didn't. That would be silly of me. No, of course I didn't. So that's Iron Fist. So why Restless Energy and Intercept and Recover? Battle tactics have been really tough, I feel, in Ironjawz right now.
Yeah. So I think that was kind of a result of not knowing or not having much experience with the GHB. And those felt like the best tactics that you could just do without really thinking about it. Those tactics to me feel like things that will just occur during the game, especially with an aggressive army. Taking their stuff, killing their things. And so, scouting force I can't do. Shooting charge stuff I don't want to do. So I think it kind of just boiled down to those felt like they would be the safest options, or at least the ones that would be, come the most natural to an aggressive army.
Yeah, because, the model count in this army is incredibly low.
Oh, yeah.
So how did it play?
It was just kind of like an Alpha Strike army, using speed and body size to pin. I think one of the other list building decisions I ran into was I played this similar list at a GT last August. Obviously not this GHB, but it ran Big Pigs instead of Maw-Krushers and ran the Gits regiment around instead of all the Rekkas and the War Chanter. I think the thing I found, though, was that with all the infantry heavy meta armies, Rekkas felt like they would be the best solution to that, which is why I went with, bajillion Rekkas. A friend of mine was saying that I always like to look into monster lists. That's just my comfort zone, is just monster mash. And he said that Maw-Krushers he thought might actually be good with their current points cost. And then that kind of sparked an interest to look into it. The regular one, having anti-infantry, felt really solid. And Gordrak is fine. I don't expect him to kill a ton. It's hard. It's hard to really say. Can't expect him to kill a ton. He's still getting 16 attacks plus, all wounding on 2s, being the smartest of all orcs, hitting on 3s on 8 of them. So it's just like, it's not that he doesn't do damage. He just might not do as much. But I found the tax of the voice of Gork ability, the +1 to hit for combat attacks, felt too necessary to overlook. Also, he's fast. He's going to keep up with everything. I think the other thing that they do well, and I think a lot of people kind of lose sight of with monsters, is just the time that they buy is more important than the points that they trade with. So if I have a 340 point Maw-Krusher, if it only kills 200 points, it's not ideal. But if it buys, 2 battle rounds of stalling units, that's phenomenal. Or if it can because it's huge base, Mighty Destroyer and tag 3 things, Like it's just how much time it buys, really. And I think the Maw-Krusha is being a 3-up save. That's something that they can really speak to that a lot of units can't, especially because they're fast, right? Like you could just spam brutes, ard boys, what have you, but they're slow. They're not getting where you need to go. A lot of those armies at the top kind of move as a castle, and you don't really want to give them time to set that up. And I figured a lot of them are going to want to give first because they're not that quick, a lot of the infantry-heavy armies. And so I just kind of wanted to throw in everything that could possibly punish them for giving me first. And that's kind of another part where the Rekkas came in. They only move 4, sure, but they can run and charge. Kragnos, the Wand, they're also going to get in there along with the rest of the stuff. They also can take up a sizable footprint and kind of fit in crevices, which made some very helpful mighty destroyers in some of the rounds to clog up things that otherwise would cause a lot of issues.
I mean, I think the only way you could probably get away with playing like a double Maw-Krusha list is if you had very little other things on the table, right? I think if you had like a reinforced unit of Ard Boys or something in there, that there would just be too many friendly models to really make a go of these huge bases.
So that's funny enough you say that. I did not deploy the Boss Rock Tower in most of the games. It was just, its ability's fine, but like most of the times I came on missions where it's like 11 inches up, Dawn of War style, or like the Fey Paths one where it's kind of like 15 inches in on each side, and it takes up too much space for the army. I will say I would keep the tower in the list technically, but I would get rid of the War Chanter and either reinforce another unit of Wreckers, or I would get rid of one unit of 3 Rekkas and a War Chanter and put in another unit of the Soggy Pigs.
I'm kind of surprised, to be honest, that I didn't see like the Scourge of Ghyran Rekkas. Is there a reason that you went with the original ones?
Maybe I just misread it. I don't think the Scourge ones can run and charge, can they?
No, they can't run and charge. They just give +1 to hit. So that was your thinking, is just like you want them to keep up with the rest of the army, given that everything's going to be super fast. So like run into a D6 or a 3D6 charge.
Exactly. I figured the 2 3-mans would be good for going and skirmishing on like side points, or just deterring deep striking units like Canaries or Life Takers or other little things like that. And they can kind of box some small Night Haunt things that might run around. And then the 6-man, I wanted to be able to keep up with the rest of the squad and really kind of push.
They were really just there to like fight, straight up just fight infantry.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll give you a few of the rounds kind of where they were beneficial, right? A lot of time they would impact, run in with everything else, and they would kill a screen or a something. They'd be able to chain out, and then from then on, their job was just getting mighty destroyered into kill units and stalling and buying time. I actually found mighty destroyers incredibly strong this weekend. I played versus ogres one game that was running a bunch of like Thunder Tusk guys. It just prevented them from charging more or less the entire time. I then ran into Doc twice, and I found the witches, the Peredsconsia, I think they are, the ones that they get +1 rend on the charge. And so running into them, preventing the charge, was super helpful. They have their new chant that moves them 6 inches or D6 inches or whatever it is. But the only time that mighty destroyers matters is their turn when they've already chanted and done all that stuff. So one of the things that was helpful in the dock matchups was that coming from the army at all sides and the front limited the space that they could actually move. So the 6 inches made it a lot harder for them to get away from me mightying into them because there was something knocking on like every side, you know? And so if they tried to move left, there were pigs and a Maw-Krusha. If they tried to move right, there's another Maw-Krusha and some Rekas, and then the front Scorcher. So it worked out pretty well. I think it also kind of came down to being a list that dwindles in viability more it's played, just because a lot of the strength was that alpha strike or catching people off guard with the speed. Or, I mean, you know the game plan. The game plan's to go in, you're going to see the army and realize that, but I think just a matter of how quickly it can get to you, and the monsters are on flanks, more or less, and the Rekas are pulling in kill units, so a lot of the turns where they would maybe, in theory, charge Kragnos with, 30, 40 Witch Elves, it turned into the Rekas pulling a unit of them in, so then they could charge them with one, or none. And the Maw-Krushers also kind of bought so much space that it made it hard to get to Kragnos, who realistically is the one dishing out the most damage, unless you kind of find yourself into those key scenarios where, like, the generic Maw-Krusher running into infantry and kind of cleaving through them.
Yeah, I could see the Maw-Krusha really chewing through some infantry. How about command points? Like, where did you find you were using most of your command points?
A lot of defense, honestly.
Yeah, keep those big assets alive.
Yeah, because it was like, realistically, I'm the one doing the charging. So one of my units is going to kill something. The other is going to get defensed when it gets, the retaliation attack. I also found a lot of the scenarios I ran into where the monsters were getting to charge something and just one thing alone, clearing it, and then not actually taking much of retaliation. So, like, there's a lot of defense used in shooting phase. Power through is always wonderful.
Sure.
I usually didn't find a lot of scenarios where I had to countercharge, just because kind of everything was already happening very quickly, so it wasn't like something was out of the fight. And there was definitely scenarios that got used, but without casting, I didn't countercast. The War Chanter, he was useless, so I didn't bother chanting at all. I mean, I would try to do a prayer, but I wouldn't counter pray.
Sounds like you had a good time.
Also, auto run. Just a lot of auto runs on the Rekas.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that could be a big one, right? Just pushing everything forward up the table.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that you were kind of mentioning it before, but if you were to cut the War Chanter, what would you bring instead? I mean, a weird knob is a pretty easy substitute.
Yeah, weird knob wouldn't be bad. So I kind of have this a little bit of hesitation because I will also say I got incredibly lucky with priority rolls all weekend. So I think I retained priority almost every single round. Maybe there was like a few that slipped by. Maybe one that mattered where like the others were kind of in like turn 4 or 5 where priority wasn't really an issue. The last round versus Doc, he took first, and I was able to clean up. He had 4 units of life takers. I was able to clean up all of them, but didn't really get to do what I wanted. And that reroll for having more regiments really came in there because I rolled a 1, he rolled a 2. It's like, okay, well, if I reroll this, I'm probably getting it. rerolled it and was able to take the double. So losing the War Chanter is unfortunate because it feels like a lot of lists are free drops. But I think Capture's not bad for the teleport, but I just felt that they weren't keeping up, and I really did like the Scourge of Gyron Gore Gruntas a lot. At first, I was kind of hesitant on them. What I found myself doing a lot is when people would take Intercept and Recover, I would actually put treasures on the War Chanter, 3 Rekkas, and the 3-man Scourge of Gyron Gore Gruntas. And I think if I had 2 Scourge of Gyron Gore Gruntas, it'd be better. Reason being that they take dedication to kill, right? Even the Rekkas, it's not a ton, but 9 wounds, 5 up, 5 up. Yeah, it's not. You're not gonna have a little character kill them or some random spell kill them. And if any amount of the opponent's units were dedicated towards trying to kill my treasures when they were on not my monsters, felt just like a win. And most of the rounds that I went versus someone with it, they only killed like 1 treasure just because they're too busy dealing with all the meat knocking at the door,
There's a lot of meat knocking at the door. Right? I mean, like, the effective HP... let me just pull this up here. The effective HP of Gordrak is... He effectively has about 60 health with his 20 health and his 3-up save. So he's a lot of meat. The efficiency that he brings to the table is not, like, super high, right? Just because he's quite expensive. But
right.
he is like a big boy, right? Same thing with like Kragnos too. Kragnos and Maw-Krusha both have about 54 effective HP. With Gordrak being the most efficient of the 3 of them, and Kragnos being the least efficient just because of how super expensive he is, right? But yeah, I mean, if your opponent isn't gonna like focus fire them down, right? Like the 3-up save it's scary.
Yeah, the ability on the Scourge Pigs is also just super solid. This is another thing kind of with the mentality with the Maw-Krusha Rampage and the Scourge Pigs was if I was going versus the meta, right? I want them to have to pack in the Zenestra and the Crone Seer and whatever little Night Hunt dudes holding the Resurrection artifact. I want that bubble to have to be so tight that those pigs can't fit in. Because then it just makes it very hard for them to actually go anywhere. Right? Like, if they're that pressed tightly, it's going to take a while for them to actually break away from what I'm doing. And if they are, I don't know how much of that, is kill power to deal with the stuff that is killing the rest of their stuff. There's definitely some matchups I was scared for. I think the list could easily fold to like a pretty good amount. I didn't get to play versus Cities, which was unfortunate just because I wanted to try the matchup. I haven't gotten to do it. Unfortunately, well aware of what Cities do right now. And it does not sound pleasant, but I kind of figured this maybe was the best bet with Orcs for Night Haunt and Dock and Cities. Losing the ability for monsters to be obscured is really unfortunate. So that definitely hurts a lot of those matchups. I got lucky not dealing with too much shooting. I did play versus Skaven with a lot of shooting, but that game was just so such one-sided dice rolls that it was kind of hard to determine what a proper outcome would look like. But
yeah, that'll happen. Did you play against any like other like Alpha Strike lists? Like any 2-drop really aggressive lists?
I played versus Ogres. I think he had what was his list? Hold on, let me pull it up real quick. He had sorry. There it is. Yeah, he had Butcher, Gorger, Maw Pack, 2 Iron Blasters, and 4 Stonehorns.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So it was definitely an odd game, but it was the kind of thing where the table had very large, awkward terrain, and because of that, the way we both kind of had to deploy was odd. And with his list not having greens really, he screened with the Iron Blasters to block off his Thunder Tusk or Stonehorns or whatever they are. And it caused an issue where I was able to get into them, kill them. Most of my army charged them. But then the Mighty Destroyers on his turn, I was able to tag, I think, 3 of the... I think 1 Stonehorn died on the first turn because it just wasn't able to get screened. And then I think I tagged the other 3 with the unit of Rekkas. And so it just turned into him kind of getting pinched and just continuously getting tagged. And that army kind of shuts off quite a bit once it does get tagged. I found last year when I was playing it as well, Mighty Destroyers was just very strong into that army. So that's kind of a hard one to tell. But besides that, I played versus Feck. And we're just kind of just like good stuff, Feck. And Cryptors, Neutron, and more bags.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised you didn't take Brute Fist. Did you consider taking Brute Fist? Like, you've said a couple times now that Mighty Destroyers is quite a good rule, right?
Yeah, the list initially had Brute Fist, but I kept getting pissed off rolling 2s and 1s.
Well, it's free if you take a Mega Boss.
That is true, but I believe it needs to be a foot Mega Boss.
It has to be a foot Mega Boss, yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of looked into that as well. Like, I could drop some Rekkas and the War Chanter and kind of try to fit something in. Points didn't really work out, but it was just another unit that couldn't keep up. And I felt like the mobilization was going to be good, and kind of felt as it went on, the +1 to hit would just kind of show itself when it needed it, it did come up. Definitely like Brute Fist, though. I think Brute Fist in the right scenario is ridiculously good.
I guess if you were going to play an Iron Fist list, this would be it. Because you just have so much punch coming out of these big monsters that clearing a unit is actually reasonable. Like, you can actually do it. Especially, like, maybe not maybe not like turn 1, but like starting on turn 2, you can be like, yeah, like I finished that unit off, right? And then here comes the big punch with +1.
And I think a lot of the things I've found now, right, is between all the impact mortals, you kind of break through a screen or start chipping away at it, and then Kragnos or the Maw-Krusha, someone can finish it off. And that was another advantage of Goretrek, right? Goretrek, Kragnos hit on 3s anyways, mostly. And so if they were able to kill something, which they usually could, it's probably just a screen, then someone who kind of snuck in the back a little bit would then be able to get that Iron Fist buff. And so it came up a lot where that buff was going off at the appropriate times. There's definitely some scenarios where it wasn't, but I feel like once it kind of boiled down where it was scenarios I wasn't getting it in a turn, I kind of was already in the heart of the opponent's army where I wanted to be anyways.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Looks like a fun list. Looks like also a good list that you could bring to a tournament because you don't have to push too many models around. You don't have too many war scrolls. I mean, I guess you still have a few, but it looks like a pretty straightforward list to play.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those ones that for a 5-round tournament, especially if you have to travel, it's just real solid because as much as I want to sit down and play me some Dock or Cities and think about life for 3 3-hour rounds the first day, I'd rather just run my models forward and kind of play around that way. But I've played war games for, decades now and have always just been attracted to Monster Mash lists. So I think I've kind of trained myself to not want to play infantry heavy things.
For sure. Any other like tips or tricks, or like would you bring the same list? I know we talked a little bit about like changing some things up, but any other like strategies if someone wants to give this list a try next weekend in their gaming club or something?
Yeah, I mean, be aggressive. You have to stop and put on the brakes occasionally. Like I ran into a lot of scenarios with Doc where they'd get like all the buffs off on one of the big blocks, and it was just not charging them for a turn, even though I'm starting the turn 3.1 inches from their face. So just, I think its biggest advantage is how aggressive it is, and it just has to hope that it doesn't fall apart too quickly. Also, making sure your key units in a matchup are not the things being assaulted, and that they're not really, you don't have combat manipulation with like fight last, fight first. So making sure you have a monster fight one big thing, and then maybe you have a few other units fighting screens that aren't actually going to kill it. That way you can make sure the first fight goes into that kill unit that you're in, already fighting or in the middle of. I feel like it's kind of just a play on the meta. I could keep going versus other armies and it just might crumble. I could play versus the meta armies that might just crumble. But it felt like it was capable of doing what I was hoping it would. A lot of those armies need to charge, and if they don't maybe kill a Maw-Krusha in one turn. Like there's a lot of times the Maw-Krusha would activate, fight something, do a ton of damage, and then another unit that was in it just put it to like 3 or 4 health, which is unfortunate, but if it killed a unit and that was 200 points and it bought me a turn and a half of time, then that's a worthwhile trade. Especially just the time stalling thing, right? It's if they're not scoring for the first 3 turns and your monsters are slowly petering out and dying, you hit a point where you kind of got to make a breakaway and make sure that you score. But that's where I feel like those tactics or those the battle tactics were helpful for it, because those were all tactics that were like, hey, kill your opponent, take their stuff. You want to be where they are, and that's exactly what the list wanted to do anyway. So
Yeah,
kind of
all Kragnos lists are good for that for sure.
yeah. And if you go into my BCP, it's joked about locally a lot, but you will see Kragnos and a lot of the armies I play.
Well, hey, I appreciate you taking the time and coming to enlighten us today on this. I'd say pretty atypical Ironjawz list. We don't see a lot of like 2 cabbages being played right now, so it's always fun to see like different armies and different play styles. So I appreciate you taking the time and chatting me up.
Hey, not a problem at all. Thank you for reaching out. It's always a pleasure. I need the orc brethren to shine,
That was Adam. Thanks again for taking the time, and I hope everybody found that pretty interesting, because like I said, it's not super typical to see like a double cabbage list. I know people really like the models, because like I absolutely love the model, and I loved playing a Mega Boss on Maw-Krusha in 3rd edition in my Big Wall list. It was a ton of fun. I miss having the big cabbage on the table in Ironjawz. So, yeah. Like, subscribe. Wow.